All right, let's jump right in. We're tackling one of the Bible's most intense chapters today, Revelation 14. It's packed with some pretty wild imagery, and we're going to use some solid scholarly insights to decode what's really going on.
So here's how we're going to break this down. Think of it like a cosmic courtroom drama, unfolding in 5 acts. We'll look at the proclamations, the indictment, the judge's arrival, the sentence, and finally the verdict. It's a great way to see how this ancient text methodically builds its case.
First up, Act 1, the proclamations. The scene opens with 3 angels showing up right in the middle of the sky, and they have some major announcements to make for the entire world.
And what's so interesting here is how these messages build on each other. It's like a crescendo, you know? It kicks off with a universal call to worship God, and this is called the eternal gospel or good news. And why is it good news? Well, for the righteous, it means vindication is finally here. But then, boom, it shifts to a very specific judgment against this corrupt world system. And it closes with a super stark personal warning for anyone who's on the wrong side of things.
All right, that brings us to Act 2, the indictment. This is where it gets really specific. That second angel calls out the target by name, Babylon the Great. So who or what is Babylon?
Well, we know it can't be the actual historical city of Babylon. I mean, by this point, it was pretty much just ruins. So what gives? Was the author using some kind of code word?
You bet he was. And scholars have a name for this. It's called a cipher. It's basically a secret code. And this was a super common trick in ancient apocalyptic literature. See, if you wanted to criticize the big, scary empire you were living under without, getting thrown in jail or worse, you'd use the name of a past evil empire as a stand-in. Your readers would totally get who you were really talking about.
And get this, using Babylon as a code for Rome wasn't something the author of Revelation invented, not at all. It was all over Jewish writings at the time. You can see it in all these other texts. And the reason is pretty clear and pretty tragic. Rome destroyed the Second Temple in Jerusalem. And who destroyed the First Temple centuries earlier? Yup, ancient Babylon. For the original audience, that connection was crystal clear and really painful.
Okay, so the indictment's been read. Now for Act 3, the judge arrives, and the scene shifts. Suddenly this powerful figure appears, described as one like a son of man. He's sitting on a cloud and he's holding a sharp sickle. He's clearly here for a harvest. This, of course, raises a huge question that interpreters have debated for ages. The text is full of clues pointing in different directions. Is this figure Christ himself, the Messiah acting as judge? Or is it another high-ranking angel carrying out God's orders?
It's a real puzzle. On the one hand, the very next verse says another angel comes out, which kind of makes you think the Son of Man is also an angel, right? Just part of the crew. But, and this is a big but, look at the description. It's so specific. It mashes up imagery from 2 major Old Testament prophecies, the Son of Man coming on clouds from the book of Daniel, and the Messiah being seated at God's right hand from the Psalms. Now that exact combo, it's like a fingerprint. Elsewhere in the New Testament, it's used only to describe Christ. It's his signature move, so to speak. So where does that leave us? Well, most scholars land here. That other angel isn't bossing Christ around. No way. Think of him more like a herald, a messenger coming directly from God the Father with an announcement. He's basically saying, the time has come. It's the appointed moment for the final harvest, that exact time that Jesus himself said only the Father knows. And now, it's here. And that announcement kicks off our dramatic climax, Act 4, the sentence. Now, when you hear harvest, you might think of golden fields of wheat. Think again. This is a harvest of judgment, and the metaphor used is, well, it's terrifying. It's the winepress.
The text paints this incredibly graphic picture. The wicked are gathered up like bunches of grapes and then thrown into what's called the great winepress of the wrath of God. It's just, wow, so intense. But as shocking as this sounds, the author didn't just invent it out of thin air.
He's doing what he's been doing all along. He's pulling directly from the Old Testament prophets. You can go back to the prophet Joel and see the exact same imagery. A sickle, a harvest, a full winepress, overflowing vats. It's all there, used to describe the day of the Lord, that final ultimate moment of judgment on evil.
So the verdict is in, and the sentence is carried out in this really shocking way. Which brings us to our final act, the verdict. We have to ask, what are we supposed to make of all this? Let's try to decode the meaning behind this incredibly violent apocalyptic language.
Okay, the details here are just wild. The text says that blood flows from this winepress for 1,600 stadia. Now, what does that mean? That's about 184 miles. And it's not just a trickle, it's deep enough to come up to a horse's bridle.
So let's just pause and picture that. A river of blood, 184 miles long, and maybe 4 or 5 feet deep. That just seems physically impossible, right? So the big question is, are we supposed to take this literally, as a prediction of something that's actually going to happen?
Almost certainly not. Scholars point to a literary device at play here called a topos. It's basically a fancy term for a stock image or a common rhetorical formula. Think of it like a go-to expression for extreme hyperbole. When an ancient writer wanted to describe a battle or a slaughter that was just off the charts decisive and absolute, they'd use this kind of language. The goal isn't the literal measurement. It's to convey the sheer, overwhelming magnitude of the event.
So here's the bottom line. The author is pulling out all the stops. He's using the most extreme, over-the-top language he can think of to communicate one single idea, the complete, total, and final judgment of evil. This isn't a literal weather report for the future. It's a powerful, symbolic metaphor.
When you look at the whole chapter, from the angelic messages and the Babylon cipher, all the way to this insane hyperbole of the winepress, you realize Revelation 14 is just a masterclass in how ancient apocalyptic writers communicated. It's powerful stuff. And it kind of leaves us with a final question to chew on, right? If they use these metaphors, harvests, wine presses, to wrap their heads around the idea of ultimate justice, what metaphors do we use today to think about the final triumph of good over evil?